Hello everyone, welcome to another iText webinar. Today's topic is a high-volume PDF creation within a streaming microservice architecture, an integration of Microsoft Dynamics ERP, iText DITO, and Cymo. I'm happy to see so many of you joining us for today's session. My name is Rien. I'm at the marketing team of iText. For those who don't know iText, iText is an international software company specialized in open source AGPL and commercial software, more specifically for creating, manipulating, and processing PDF documents. Our solutions are used for a variety of purposes, such as invoices, credit card statements, boarding passes, patient documentation, certificates, regular PDF documents, and many, many more. We're headquartered in Belgium, but we also have our offices in the US as well as Singapore. Today, I'm pleased to introduce our joint session speakers, Erwin Buggenhout, and our guest speaker for today, Wim de Breuk. Erwin is our iText DITO product manager, and today he's going to give us a nice demo on iText DITO. But we'll start off with Wim, who's a managing partner and change catalyst at Cymo. He will demonstrate us how they incorporated streaming event-driven architecture for customers with Microsoft Dynamics ERP and using iText DITO for their PDF creation. Before I hand over the slides to Wim, I have a few housekeeping items to cover. First off, today's webinar will be available on demand after the live session. We will share you the link in an email which we will send after the webinar. You'll also be able to access it from our website, itextpdf.com, as well as our YouTube channel. If you have any question for our speakers, feel free to send it through the questions tab in the webinar application. We'll be answering questions at the end of the session. If we don't get to your question during today's webinar, we will be sure to follow up afterwards. And last, sharing is caring. Use the iText DITO tag for anything concerning the session. So without any further ado, I'd like to kick things off by welcoming Wim from Cymo. Wim, over to you. I will be giving you presenter rights.
Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the webinar. Let's take the time, or I want to take the time to tell you something about PDF generation in cooperation with iText. We'll go over what we did with our customer Mateco. Who exactly is Mateco? What is Cymo, and what is Cymo offering? What is the Cymo platform? And then we'll try to do a small demo to show you how we approached PDF generation in this particular case. I must say it's not the classical way. We'll show you the landscape that we used and how we processed the information to get to the events. So let's get started. Okay. So the company Mateco is actually all about lift trucks, working platforms. It's actually part of the larger TVH group, founded in Belgium. The TVH group has two business units, and one is the TVH parts. That's all about selling parts of lift trucks. We are a global leader in that. The other unit is the Mateco Holding, and the Mateco Holding that's what the project here is about. And so we have three business lines, and the Mateco is all about renting out the machines. We rent them, we repair them, we give them service, and we also sell used equipment. Some figures. So the whole TVH group is about almost 2 billion euro revenue. The Mateco unit is in 17 countries. We have more than 160 branches by now. And some figures, we have almost 40,000 machines now. It's a little bit old slide. And we do about 600 rental contracts a year. One contract is of course generating multiple PDFs, and we deliver machines, we transport them, we give them quotes first, and so on. We have service reports, so you can see that we need a lot of PDFs. Today we are rolled out with the system in 3 countries, and we're already generating about 20,000 till 40,000 PDFs a day. So PDF creation is actually a performance and a challenge for mateco. Okay, what exactly is Cymo? As mateco is all about rental and lift trucks, Cymo is all about streaming architecture. It's about integrating different systems, and we use a business event-oriented streaming architecture for that. Cymo has a goal to give companies a jump start to do that. And streaming architecture is almost the holy grail. It's not exactly the holy grail, well, it's close to it. But the problem is that there are very few tools and facilitating stuff to jumpstart you in event streaming. It takes a lot of time to get started. Cymo wants to shorten that time and wants to give you a jump start by offering a platform where you can connect your systems and give you some tools to get the value out of that business event streaming architecture. But what exactly is a business event? You could ask yourself. It's on a high level. It's really simple. It's business language to start with. It's something that you let your systems express something that everyone understands. If your CE system creates a customer, well, let's name it like that, and let's name it customer created. Let's name it product ordered, product delivered, order invoiced, whatever. The business understands it. There's no question about it. It's also a point in time, and you really know the timestamp when a business event happened. So if we take the business events and we put them in a kind of queue, one after the other, you have a kind of stream. That's nothing more than that. It's really simple idea. You put your express your behavior, your business behavior is expressed on a kind of business event queue, and everyone is able to read, to consume those events at their own pace, at their own performance. And it's a simple idea, but it's very powerful that actually everyone is able to do that and to consume that information. If we look at the managed service platform of Cymo, at a high level, we have a couple of components that are important here. To start, we have the central nervous system. We need something to store the events, of course. We need to store the stream, and we use Kafka for that. I can give you a whole webinar on Kafka for 3 hours. It's a pretty amazing streaming architecture, but that's not the subject here. Important to know that Kafka is really good in providing that. On top of that, we have the streaming service. If you start with streaming architecture and with business events, you quickly see the need to join events. The one event needs information from the other event. It's a kind of database query join like thing, but then in real processing, in real-time processing. So you need that, and it's not so easy, but Cymo platform facilitates you to make those joins comprehensible, and that you can quickly set up those joins in the streaming architecture. Of course, important, the document generator. We use iText, we built in the iText generator to create PDFs. We have a lot of reasons to do that and to have chosen iText to do that. Important to know here is that it seems trivial, but for a lot of companies to push out the right document at the right time with all the information on it that is based on information that is stored in different systems is a real challenge. So the Cymo platform lets you combine information of different systems and gives you the trigger and the data to generate that PDF. The times that we need to wait for a batch job at 7 a.m. that will push out order confirmations of the past 24 hours, that day is in the past for most businesses. If you're not there yet, you will be in the future. The need for real-time processing is coming. There's just too much data out there, and the service is just too important to give it at the right time. Okay, if we go back to Mateco and have a look at the landscape there, we see that it's a decentralized landscape. We have back office systems based on Microsoft Dynamics 365, the ERP system. We use the CE, the customer experience system, and the financial and operation systems. Every customer and let's say operational facing application is custom built because we have a pretty specific line of business and we need the flexibility. So we have a lot of applications, and these are the most important ones, and each application is then again split out in multiple microservices, but everything is connected with the streaming architecture. The technology stack we use, Kubernetes, everything is Dockerized, Java-based, we are multi-cloud, we run on GCP, we have Azure, of course the Kafka, just to give you a little bit an idea. Okay, let me look at the time. Okay, we're good. The demo, we'll try to give you a view on a happy flow of renting out a machine. If you can imagine, you create a customer, of course, you need to construct a rental contract. Perhaps you need to assign a sales representative for that. If you rent out a machine, you will need to deliver that machine, of course, and the machines are fairly large, so they are transported to the customer. At the end of the rental period, they are picked up. Some pictures are taken to see if the machine is still in a good state, if it is any damage. Of course, the delivery document needs to be generated, to be emailed to the customer, and of course the invoice needs to be created. And then if all works well, you would need to see the same happy flow, but in a little bit different presentation. So if we look at the customer created here, and it's the Microsoft Dynamics system, we can create here our customer, classic. If we do that, we will see that the Cymo platform picks that up and puts kind of a message on one of the queues. It has a business event. Oh, it has a business event that says account created. We put it on the queue. It's there. It's on that time. Okay, that's expressed. We expressed that. If we have the rental order created application, that's then a custom application that's built on Java, runs on GCP. It's very specific, very neat, very trimmed down to the essential that the user needs to do. If we create the contract, then we get another message, and the contract created message. Same for the mobile application. If the mobile application delivers a machine to the customer, it gets signed off, some information is captured, contact person on site, and so on. The driver confirms the transport, the delivery, and again, an event type is created. After the rental period is finished, we go and get the machine and we pick it up, and then we'll see that directly the trigger will generate a message that the machine is returned here, but the document is directly generated, and the trigger is the one, the pickup is the one that says, okay, we need a delivery document, and then the iText generation is triggered, and we get a nicely laid out document like this with some pictures as an example here. So basically, this is it. It's a way of generating PDFs without storing all the data in a database and go fetch it afterwards and try to do something in a post manner. It's real time. It's highly available, and the technology is totally run on Dockerized GCP. It's auto scalable. We need that if we get a tsunami of PDF requests to cope with that. And it combines ERP, classic way of doing things, with state-of-the-art custom microservice landscape, and this is how we do it. So that's my part. If I'm correct, Aaron, you're going to tell something about the designer that we use also for the layouting of the documents. Back to you.
Yes, absolutely. So that's correct. I can share my screen now, if I'm not mistaken. And let me switch my camera on just for a second as well, so you can actually see me. So let's share the screen. And indeed, I'm going to tell you something about iText DITO, which is iText low-code template-based PDF document generator. We sometimes call it our low-code data-driven template-based PDF document generator because we happen to like very long taglines. Let me just get rid of the camera here so we can focus on the actual slides and move it to the next one. So basically, if we're thinking about iText, most people will definitely think about iText's developer tool. So we have our iText core library that has been around for about 20 years now, just a little bit over 20 years. And as a matter of fact, with that core library, you can, as a developer, you can do everything imaginable in terms of PDF generation, manipulation, and so on and so forth. You name it, we can do it with that library. The only kind of important thing is that you have to be a developer, because if you're not a developer, there's not much you can do with the iText PDF library. So kind of based on that realization, and also tapping into the kind of low code idea, a couple of years ago, we decided to broaden our product portfolio a little bit with what we refer to as high convenience tools. And those are actually still mostly developer-oriented tools, but they also contain a couple of components that are accessible to, let's say, normal mortal people, business users, rather than only developers. So these high convenience tools, at this point, we actually have two of those. One of them is iText PDF to data, which is a data extractor that starts from a PDF and kind of overlays that PDF with a template to extract the data out of it, and then the output of that process is structured data. On the other hand, we have iText DITO, which is the topic today, of course, which does the same thing, but then the other way around. We start from structured data, JSON data in this case, and we use a template to merge that JSON data into a design that can also contain some business logic, and then we produce a document, a PDF document out of it. So same thing, same three concepts: the concept of PDF, the concept of template, and the concept of data, but then the other way around. Now, if you look at the main process, the main flow actually of the application, now we see three things. It all starts with data. Data that's coming from disparate sources, can be, as Wim mentioned earlier, can be your CRM systems, your ERP systems, your line of business applications, like the custom applications that we saw Wim demonstrate earlier on that are built for mateco. And well, the data is coming in, and once the data is there, we can actually merge that data with a template that we can design through the iText DITO editor, which is a template design component that runs in the browser. And then once we have that design and we have the data, we can kind of marry those two, merge these two together to generate PDFs. And those PDFs are generated through an API that can generate those PDFs as a file path, where the PDFs can then be stored and downloaded, or just as a byte stream. That's up to you. Now, if we look at that process, and I really want to stress this because that's kind of the importance also of this session. If you look at that process from a performance perspective, what you typically see is that given the power of the API that we provide, the actual generation of the document is typically not the portion that consumes most time. As a matter of fact, collecting the data is typically what takes most of the time. And obviously, with a platform like the Cymo platform, the data is already more or less available on the platform at the time when there's an event that triggers a PDF creation, which saves a lot of time in the process. Yeah. So I think that's kind of an important message that we want to give you. From a performance perspective, we can only go so fast as the data comes to the solution, to be honest. So that's kind of the application flow. If you look at the components that iText DITO is built of, basically at this point in time, there are two components. There's the iText DITO editor, which is the WYSIWYG template design experience. I'm going to show you how that looks and feels. And then the iText DITO SDK, or the API as we call it, which is that that document generator, that PDF producer API that we have. There's a native Java version of it. But going forward, we're definitely going to focus on the REST API, the containerized REST API that we offer, which is available as a Docker image. You can just run it, and also helpful to scale up, that we provide that as a Docker environment. I'm going to do something special today, rather than just give a demo of the iText DITO editor. I'm also actually going to show you the pre-release version of a new component that we are adding to iText DITO, which is the iText DITO manager. And the manager is actually a management experience around iText DITO that allows you to set up a workspace, set up users in that workspace, and set up all the things that you actually need to to manage your templates. And it starts from data collections, loading up structures, data structures, JSON files, in fact, at this point, that you will be able to use in combination with your templates. Obviously, there's the template management aspect and also the resources management. Resources could be things like images that you want to use in your templates. Think of your logo, for instance, your company logo, but maybe also other images that you want to reuse in multiple templates. We now have a central platform where those resources can be managed. Fonts is another thing, so you can upload your fonts, manage your fonts on a central location. And then finally, style sheets. So actually the editor is built for non-technical people, for business users. So a lot of the things in terms of layout and so on can be easily done by by setting all sorts of configurations and settings, just and dragging and dropping stuff. So that's all straightforward. But we also support CSS styling. Yeah. So these style sheets, these CSS style sheets, can now also be managed centrally through a manager experience. The platform, so the iText DITO Manager platform, also provides capabilities around promoting templates from one environment to another. Like, for instance, there's a development environment, maybe there's a UAT environment, maybe more staging and pre-production environments, and finally there's a production environment. You can actually push templates from one environment to another through a simple process. Okay, so that's what I want to show you today. I think I have a slide that says demo. That's always good. We can actually leave PowerPoint and get into some live action here. So I'm going to share my my browser window and show you the manager experience. I think probably I'm going to be asked to log in again. So that's also for the people who are already using iText DITO. This is a new concept. We actually have a concept of users now where you can log into the environment. It immediately brings you to the template management environment where you see the templates that you are managing in this iText DITO workspace. Okay. If we walk through the process that I just mentioned, it starts from data, then you have templates, and when you have those templates that are maybe also using your resources, then you can generate PDFs. Okay, so starting from the data part, here is basically the environment where you can centrally manage your different data collections. So adding a data collection is pretty simple. You just give the data collection a name. Let me just call it webinar data, for instance. And then you can upload it, or you can indicate that this is going to be a JSON data collection. At this point, JSON is the data collection type that we support. Maybe we're going to add XML support in the future. We're also thinking about connecting to databases directly. So you would be able to kind of select the database connector here, and then at runtime we would go and collect the data from your database. But if you're working obviously within an environment like the Cymo environment, then it makes a lot of sense just to use this JSON data collection type. Okay, let's select the file that we want to use. There's this webinar JSON that I prepared for this session. We can upload it and create it, which creates a data collection. The data collection will be used in combination with a template to actually drag and drop placeholders for fields, for field values that will be injected into the template at runtime, right? So, but before we are thinking about PDF generation, we still have to design our template. And when we are designing our template, you probably from time to time want to preview it. And to be able to preview it, we also provide a capability of creating data samples that you can use for preview. Yeah. So uploading this JSON file, it has values for the different fields in the JSON. So this is actually asking us whether we want to use that same JSON that we just uploaded to create a first data sample for this data collection. So we can do that. There it is. We can give it a name. Let me just call it sample webinar. There you go. And that will create a first sample for our data collection that we just created. So there's a list of samples over here, so you can create a second sample if you want to. Yeah. We keep a version history of everything. We just created this thing, so this is only one version so far. You can set permissions as well, just to indicate who has access to this environment. Sorry, not this environment, but this specific data collection that we uploaded. And there's also a tab with dependencies. Right now, this item does not have any dependencies so far, but we can use this this data collection now in combination with, or kind of connect this data collection to a template that we're going to create, and then there will be a dependency between those two items. Okay, let's do that. Let's create a new template. We're going to the template management part, add a template, and you can give the thing a name. Let me call it template webinar. We can connect the data collection that we just have created, so the webinar data. And then there's a type selector where you can either create a header template, a standard template, a footer template, or a composition. Let's maybe just create a standard template at this point. That's the most straightforward thing. That's what you think when I say template. It's actually a blueprint of a document. Obviously, header template and a footer template, it speaks for itself. Those are, like the reusable header sections and footer sections that you see on documents, the things that are repeated on every page. But the composition is maybe an interesting thing to just stop and talk about for a second. That is actually, you could compare it to a jigsaw puzzle that you can define, that uses different other templates, standard templates, header templates, and footer templates. It's kind of the puzzle where you bring all of your the body parts and the header and the footers, bring that all together to create a combined document, reusing some of the templates that you may have. For instance, imagine that you have this corporate header that you want to use on all of your templates, then you just basically refer from your composition that you create to that header, and you can actually reuse that header into your templates. That's kind of important. For instance, if your logo changes or if you win the Company of the Year award, then you maybe want to show that new logo, or that's like in an award image or whatever in your header. And then that header, if you just update that single header, that corporate header, all of the templates, or the compositions rather, that make use of that header will be updated to the latest version. Same thing, for instance, for a terms and conditions section. Say that you update your terms and conditions because of Brexit or whatever reason, then if you use that terms and conditions section across multiple templates, by just updating that section, automatically all of the compositions that use that section will be updated to the latest version of the terms and conditions. I'll maybe show you, if we have time for that, I'll maybe show you how you build such a composition, but let's keep things simple and start with a standard template at this point. So when we hit create, actually what will happen is that our editor experience opens up. So we see that template webinar being opened here in the editor, the iText DITO editor, which also has gotten a little bit of a facelift and a makeover here. And we can start putting text elements and tables and images and barcodes and whatnot into the actual template that we're building. Okay, let me just add a text element. So there you go, there's a text element. Obviously, maybe we don't want to have everything in Times New Roman. So you can actually just go to the subform over here, the main subform, and set some specific settings for your template. Like for instance, a font. Let's maybe use this font, and select certain size that we want to use, make things bold, and so on and so forth. So there's quite a few, the usual suspects in terms of properties for text are going to be available over here. Yeah. Same thing, if you insert an image, you'll see image related things here. If you insert a table, you'll see table related properties, right? Since most probably your template should not only have static text, but also dynamic text, you can actually also select or use this data tab, where you have your actual connection to the data. So you see that we have this sample, the webinar sample that we just created. We have that loaded, and now we can actually start to map items from this data structure, which is quite a big one, to be honest. We can start mapping fields in there. So say that we want to use that construction year field over here. What we actually can do is simply drag and drop it into position, and we see that the instance dot construction year data bind is created. Okay. There's much more that you can do. Obviously, you can connect resources that we have. There's the TVH equipment logo. You can actually bring that logo in here. Style sheets. I'm not sure if I have any style sheets. I haven't gotten any style sheets in the environment at this point, but you can use those in there. Yeah. At this point, I think it's a good time to jump to the template that was used in Wim's demo just a couple of minutes ago. So we have that overview. As you can see, there's a header in here. The TVH equipment logo is in here. There's a lot of data binds in all sorts of tables over here. And so you saw the images also that Wim showed in his demonstration. Those are actually loaded over here. At any point during the creation process, you can preview what your file looks like with a sample. So I have this demo sample here, for instance. So we can preview what our document actually looks like. So let's give it a second to load up. There you go. So this is actually a Dutch version of the same document, where you see that the images are brought into the actual document that is produced. Okay. If we look at how that's all done, then we can take it back to the editor experience and have a look at some of the particularities here. I actually already showed you how you do mappings and so on and so forth. But the interesting thing is that, or the thing that I want to show you as well, is conditional items. So basically, you can go to this conditions tab, where you can see that a lot of the content of the template here will show up conditionally, only provided that a certain condition is true, for instance. So if we have a look at this contract ID part, for instance, it's only shown provided that a certain field is not empty. Yeah, and you can set that condition through syntax, as you can see over here. But you can actually also simply use this little wizard to build that logic into the document. It's very simple. So you actually select the field that you want to use in a condition, and then you indicate that you want to use this as a text, as a number, as a true/false field, and then select your operator, which depends on what you selected over here. Okay, so that kind of stuff, very easy to do, very straightforward, very simple. Something else that we see in a lot of documents is, for instance, the repeating sections, like for instance, the pictures, the different pictures that are loaded. You probably saw that we had multiple of those. And as a matter of fact, what you see is that we are looping an array here. Yeah. So basically, to do that, it's very straightforward. The only thing you'd have to do is create the data bind and select the array that you want to bind actually. And in that case, you just from the second you select an array, you see that iText DITO automatically checks a box here to repeat the section that you selected for every item in the array. And you can do some more settings around that and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's just go OK over here. So and that would automatically create that that's repeating section. There's a lot more things to talk about. There's also a PDF UA checking engine that we have that makes sure that the documents that you will produce during or making use of this template will be supporting screen readers, for instance. Yeah? UA stands for Universal Accessibility. So that kind of stuff is also supported. Okay, but let me just take it back to the manager real quick for a couple of final words before we open up for Q&A. Let me just do it this way. Okay. What I still want to talk about is the settings section, where you can define users and security rules, but also different API instances. So once you have such a template, you can actually start using it in your different instances. There may be a production instance, a development instance, and so on and so forth. So you can connect multiple API instances to a manager environment and set up a promotion path to promote items from one environment, from development to UAT to staging to pre-production and ultimately to production through the user interface. Okay, the way to do that, very straightforward. You go to an to a template like this terms and conditions section, for instance, could be a template that you want to promote. Have a look at the version history, and then you could say, for instance, that this version, this second version, you want to promote that to the next environment, and then it's going to be taken from development to UAT. If you want to promote that through to the next environment, you can promote it to staging and so on and so forth until it reaches production. Okay, I think that's more or less what we have time for today, and I'm happy to open it up for questions while I maybe take it to the presentation again.
Okay, thank you, Erwin and Wim, for this wonderful presentation on iText DITO and Cymo and the cool things you are able to do with it. We still have some time for Q&A. Several questions have come in. Let me just have a look. There is one question here from Justin. Can you make a condition on a section? I guess that's a question for you, Erwin.
Yeah, so conditions on sections, most probably we are talking about the compositions. And so the answer is not in MVP. So we are launching the iText DITO manager that contains that composition functionality. End of March, you can see here that we have actually a webinar to launch it as well. So I want to use the opportunity here to invite you to that one as well. And at MVP, we will only allow you just to bring the pieces together. In one of the upcoming releases, we will add conditionality to that. So you will be able to use, the conditional logic that you saw me create also in the templates. You will also be able to use the same experience to build conditional insertion of segments into a composition.
Then I have one more coming in, a question of Syed. Can we print data in a table dynamically with repeatable rows?
Yeah, absolutely. So just like you saw the images being repeated, you can actually also create a loop. We call it a loop on a data array, and bind that array basically to a table row, and then the table row will repeat for every item that you have in the array. If you want that, you can also set a minimum number of repetitions or a maximum number of repetitions of that row in that case. Minimum number of repetitions would add empty rows to the end of the table until you reach the number. Like for instance, if you have an invoice and you want to show at least a table with 10 rows and you only have 5 products on your invoice, but you definitely want to show 10 rows, then you can set minimum repetitions to 10. The first 5 rows will be filled in with data, and then 5 empty rows will be created. You can also do the same thing with maximum number of repetitions. In that case, if you have a 10 row table and you have 20 products, only the first 10 products will be shown in the list. It's interesting if you want to show a top 10 or whatever.
Okay, great. Maybe one more last question. We have plenty coming in, but we are running over time. So one last question I see is, this is one for Wim, about how many generated documents are we speaking in the mateco case? Do you have any insights on that? Wim?
Yes, it depends heavily on the situation, and one day-by-day average is fluctuating, but we see that on a heavy performance day, we are close to 40,000 PDFs a day. On a low average, we have 20,000. And we are just in production with the system in 3 countries. So we need to add 13 countries yet. So.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. We have to close it off here because we are running over time. Let me just say that all the questions we were not able to answer right now in the session will be followed up afterwards by email. Many thanks to everyone for joining us today. As stated, you'll receive a link to the recording in an email shortly after this webinar. You'll also be able to access it from our website, itextpdf.com. If you're keen to receive any further news about iText or Cymo, just let us know through marketing@itextpdf.com. And finally, be sure to save the date, 30th of March 2021. We have the huge launch of iText DITO 2.0 with the whole revamp of the interface and the template manager. So stay tuned. Registrations will open soon for that next webinar. That's for now. Thank you for joining us. Have a nice day and talk soon. Thank you all. Bye-bye.